Bradley Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Secretary of State, yesterday the Shadow Secretary of State asked if you will publish the text of a deal that you signed with China in March of last year, and you dodged the question. You called it a wacky conspiracy theory. In your view, why is asking to publish the text of a deal that you signed on behalf of the UK government a wacky conspiracy theory?
We're simply following the practice of the previous government in relation to I think a 2015 memorandum of understanding. But ask me anything about our relationship with China, Mr. Thomas, and I'll answer.
Okay, so ministers in your department have published similar deals relating to Chile and Japan, for instance. Why do different rules apply to China?
That's the practice that was employed under the previous government. But ask me any questions about our relationship with China and I'll answer them.
You know, the sort of topics that Parliament deserves to see the detail on include whether this deal involved commitments not to complain to China about slave labour being used in solar production, supply chains, commitments to maintain resilience on maintain reliance on Chinese supply chains.
Do ask me, Mr. Thomas, any questions you like about our relationship to China.
And this is what I'm doing. So why not publish the text of the deal?
Why don't you, as I say, we're following the practice of the previous government.
But Secretary of State, you've released the text of deals with other countries. Why is China being treated differently?
I'm just explaining to you that we're following the practice of previous governments. But
I'm asking about this government. This government has
ask me, Mr. Thomas, any questions you like.
This government has published the text of deals with other countries. Why not release the text of the deal for China?
As I say, we're following the previous practice.
I'm talking about this government, Secretary of State. You've released it for other countries.
We're following the previous practice, as I said. Text. But do ask me any questions about our relationship with China.
So why not release the text?
Well, I think I've explained to you the practices that we're following, and with certain countries, we have certain approaches, and with others we have other approaches.
Okay, so if there's a different approach to China, why is China different?
Well, as I say, just ask me any questions you like on this.
That's what I'm doing. This is the question I would like to ask. So why is China being treated differently?
I've answered the question, Mr. Thomas.
He's answered that quite a few times.
I don't believe he has. He's made reference to the previous government.
Whether you like the answer is another matter, but he has.
This government has a very inconsistent approach, Chairman. They've released the text of deals with other countries, but not with China. There is a two-tier approach, quite evidently. So if the government is going to apply a uniform approach, why does the Secretary of State not release the text of this deal?
We proceed on the basis of on a certain basis with some countries and a different basis with different countries, as has been the practice of previous governments. But honestly, ask me any questions about our relationship with China, and I'll answer them for you.
And that's what I've been doing, but you haven't answered them, Secretary of State.
Well, you obviously don't have any questions actually about the substance. What is your question on the substance, Mr. Thomas?
Substantively, I would like to see the government release the text of this deal, as Parliament deserves to see. Now, the Secretary of State can chuckle and laugh and be evasive around the topic, but it's a serious issue.
Do you have any more questions?
I don't have any further questions.
Okay, thank you.
British politics like this one. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Doc British. Believe it or not, over 98% of viewers watch our content without hitting the follow button. Subscribing is completely free. What you just watched is a perfect example of how political accountability can slowly turn into political evasion. This wasn't just a routine committee exchange. It was a direct question repeated multiple times, and a direct answer that never really came. Bradley Thomas asked something very simple. Why won't the government publish the text of a deal signed with China? Not a classified military blueprint. Not intelligence secrets. Just the text of a memorandum signed on behalf of the United Kingdom. And instead of a clear yes or no, we got repetition. We're following the practice of the previous government. Over and over again. Now let's break this down properly. Thomas's line of questioning wasn't random. He pointed out that similar agreements with countries like Chile and Japan have been published. So the obvious question becomes, if transparency is fine for Chile, fine for Japan, why not for China? That's not a conspiracy theory. That's not wacky. That's basic parliamentary scrutiny. Miliband's defense rests entirely on precedent. He says the previous government handled China differently. Therefore, this government is doing the same. But here's the issue. Governments change. Policies change. Standards change. If Labour is in power and claims to offer a new, more accountable style of leadership, then hiding behind what the Conservatives did in 2015 sounds weak. Thomas pushed further. He raised serious concerns. Does this deal involve commitments around Chinese supply chains? Around solar production? Around potential links to forced labor? These aren't minor details. They go to the heart of national security, ethics, and economic dependency. And yet, every time the question narrowed in on the text itself, the response circled back to the same line: ask me anything about our relationship with China. But that is the question. Transparency is substance. The refusal to publish is itself the issue. Now, let's be fair. Governments sometimes treat countries differently. China is not Chile. China is not Japan. China is a global superpower with complex geopolitical implications. There may well be strategic reasons for handling agreements differently. But if that's the case, say so clearly. Explain the reasoning. Spell out why China requires a different approach. Instead, what we saw was procedural language repeated like a shield. And politically, that's where this becomes damaging. Because when politicians avoid answering straightforward questions, even if they have a legitimate reason, the avoidance creates suspicion. It fuels the very conspiracy theories they claim to dismiss. Thomas kept hammering the same point. This government has published other deals. So why not this one? Miliband kept repeating, we are following previous practice. The chair even stepped in to defend him, saying he had answered the question. Technically, yes, he responded. But did he address the core issue? Not really. There's a difference between replying and answering. From a strategic perspective, Miliband may believe he's protecting diplomatic flexibility. China is sensitive. Trade, green energy, solar supply chains. All of this matters to the UK's economic plans. Publishing details might complicate negotiations or strain relations. But politically, the optics are poor. When you chuckle, when you deflect, when you repeatedly invite substantive questions while refusing to release the document itself, it looks dismissive. Thomas framed it as a two-tier approach. That phrase is powerful because it suggests inconsistency. An inconsistency in foreign policy raises concerns about leverage, pressure, or even compromise. Now, is there evidence of wrongdoing here? No, none presented in this exchange. But that's not really the point. Parliamentary committees exist precisely to test transparency. If a Secretary of State cannot clearly explain why one country's deal is published and another's is not, then questions will linger. And here's the bigger picture. The UK's relationship with China is one of the most delicate balancing acts in modern politics. On one hand, China is essential to global trade and green technology supply chains. On the other, there are serious concerns about human rights, forced labor allegations, and strategic dependency. Solar